How are we feeling? It's Easter. Have we all been out finding eggs?
I found the Lord. Turns out that guy's risen. You hear about this?
I didn't know the Lord was an egg.
Yeah, she's going to make a really big announcement in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, born again. Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm imagining Spinal Tap right now with the Lord inside the egg.
Yeah, I think that the Easter Bunny might not be able to afford Easter this year, and putting out eggs. I know that there's been articles in like the Times or whatever about people painting rocks different colors and just hiding those around.
I saw
can't afford
potatoes,
eggs.
which seems incredibly sad.
Irish Easter? That rules.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Welcome to the Worst of All Possible Worlds, the first and only podcast to celebrate Irish Easter. I am the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Joshes.
And I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
And this week, I am so excited to introduce the guest that we've got on. She is a true multi-hyphenate. She's acted in TV shows such as Still Standing and The Secret Life of the American Teenager. She's also released 4 studio albums, count them, 4, of pop, jazz, and country music. And more recently, pretty much like since 2020, right? She's been working as a marriage and family therapist specializing in the adult entertainment industry. And she's also been a breakout success as an adult model and actor in her own right. And in 2024, or actually I think it was technically the beginning of this year, 2025, she was named 2024's Penthouse Pet of the Year. Welcome to the show, Renee Olstead.
What a pleasure. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Renee, we were talking a little bit about you coming on the show, and I was like, we got some things we could talk about. Here's a big old list. And you got back to me a couple days later, and you were like, I want to talk about Showgirls.
When do I not want to talk about Showgirls?
Absolutely. And having now watched it myself, I have to say I am also going to constantly be wanting to talk about this movie. Paul Verhoeven's 1995 camp classic. What is it about this movie?
Well, it's very polarizing. That's for one. I also love that it sort of had its resurgence later on when people kind of recognized its value. I don't know. I think there's a lot of layers to it, and there's a lot of mirroring, which I'm sure we'll get into as well, and mirroring with kind of my own experience. I obviously started in mainstream entertainment and moved into the adult world, and I think there's a lot of really interesting things to talk about with this film, and the performances, man. Like, come on. This one goes to 11.
It never goes below 11.
I am so excited, and frankly, I just can't hide it.
Are you so excited? Are you so excited? Are you so scared, AJ?
I am very scared, actually.
I'm terrified.
There are several moments in this movie I fear for my life, yes.
So what I'm hearing, Renee, is that this is a 100% accurate depiction of the industry and everything that comes with it.
No notes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. No liberties were taken.
Yeah.
Straight up.
A screenwriter who really understands women too. And
This is probably a great
The
opportunity for me
nuances.
to start off by talking about my nails.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
are
yeah.
purple right now. I do feel a lot of these choices were intentional, and I'm sure there's other things that, as an audience we interpret now. There's a lot there. I mean, starting off with the sort of like women only talking about their nails and chips, and there's something that like harkens back to the sort of do you remember in Gone Girl that moment with like the cool girl monologue?
Yeah, when it kind of does the big mid-movie reveal. Yeah.
I don't think we'd had the conversation about like pizza is a personality quite yet, but the whole idea of like the brown rice and vegetables girls versus like the burger, fries, and a Coke girls that are like
Yes.
just cool and effortlessly beautiful and svelte with perky nipples. They just woke up like this kind of a cool girl is that I just there's a lot there.
And we're going to dig into all of that. But before we talk about sort of the background of this movie and the context around it, I think I just wanted to frame up like what it is that makes for a camp classic. That big question. Because we're not a bad movie podcast exactly, although we do sometimes talk about bad movies. We talked about The Room a few weeks ago, which is another widely beloved cult classic. What is it about these kinds of movies that makes them so compelling and so rewatchable? What do you find yourself coming back to?
I mean, one of the big takeaways for me was that it feels more erratic than erotic.
Yes, that should be on the box. That is the quote.
Thank you. But yeah, there's so many beautiful people in this film, and yet it somehow feels so unsexy. It's such a caricature, if that makes sense. And I think that there's also this theme of like sex as performance. In the movie, obviously, there's a moment where Nomi gives a lap dance to Zach, and then later they have this pool scene, and it's a near exact replication of her performing in the club. I think that there's something interesting there about the performance of sex versus like real eroticism.
Yeah. I mean, this is Cocaine the movie, right? This was written in the dead of night with a bleary-eyed bloodshot man just sitting behind the keys, like tapping away.
Well, it should be worth talking about like where Showgirls came from, you know, because part of the reason why everyone hated it as much as they did when it first came out was because of the way that it's like marketed as an erotic movie, as a movie that you're gonna want to like take home with you and jack off a bunch.
Yeah, Brian, what the fuck is an erotic thriller? This is just such a 90s thing that I've never been able to wrap my head around conceptually. I don't understand this concept.
Certainly the peak of it commercially was the era of Basic Instinct, of Jagged Edge, of Flashdance. Some of these are not even erotic thrillers, but like it all kind of flows into this one big thing. Essentially, in 1990, the MPAA was like, okay, we're getting rid of the X rating because people see X rating, they just think porn, right? X rated, we didn't trademark it. You can use X rated for your movie, whatever. You know, in the 80s, there was even just like this idea of defining what is pornos. You know, we had the Mies report, which really defines like, okay, here's the commercial industry of pornography, illegal and legal. You know, James Dobson had a huge hand in all of this. Of course, we've talked about that with the episode where he, you know, interviewed Ted Bundy and everything. You also have this growing, not just the religious right, but also like big chain movie theaters. They do not want to show X-rated movies. When you were in the 70s, you could go and see like Last Tango in Paris or something at a regular movie theater, or you could even see, you know, full penetration hardcore pornography. I came across an ad recently from Albuquerque in the 70s where they played The Devil in Miss Jones at a drive-in theater on Route 66. So you could be driving by a big outdoor theater and just see PIV.
Oh my God.
So this wasn't just like, you know, New York kind of thing where you were going and seeing Boys in the Sand by Wakefield Pool or whatever. This was pretty mainstream. They called it porno chic. And by the time that we get to the 80s and the 90s, we're like, well, we want a brand of grown-up movies. We want a rating that's like, yeah, we don't have any desire for kids to see this movie. We want it for adults. And we made the NC-17 rating. And the NC-17 rating has not been a very commercially successful thing. You got a lot of foreign movies coming in that were getting that rating. You had a few domestic things, but for the most part, everyone was waiting for the big NC-17 movie to make it viable. At the same time, we're getting erotic thrillers like Jagged Edge, written by a Hungarian lunatic named Joe Eszterhas. Paul Schrader is kind of in this side of things too. Yeah. And what we find with erotic thrillers is that some of them do modest money at the box office, but the new widely available VHS tape makes them very successful for home rentals and home purchases because people get like one scene of fleeting nudity, they take it home and then they just rewind it over and over and over and over again.
I think this is something that's actually kind of shown in Showgirls as well, that that the mainstream industry isn't as clean as people imagined it being. I think we're starting to have that conversation with series like Quiet on Set and some of the exposés where we're talking about like what it was actually like to, you know, work in an industry that, you know, wasn't incredibly kind to young people and in some cases very abusive. Yeah. So I do think that like moving into adult, I've had a lot more autonomy. So I am not beholden to a single boss that has like an opinion on my weight. For example, if somebody doesn't like me, if somebody's mean, I can block them. They can go elsewhere and buy content from somebody else or support someone else if I'm not their cup of tea. And that to me has been really freeing. I get to make what I'm comfortable with, you know, on my schedule. Like obviously I have a lot of other plates like spinning. And back to what we were talking about just a second ago, like that sort of like speculation about what's going to happen like with the industry when we were talking about like seeing eroticism like on screen, bringing this back to my own like adult entertainment connection and the Penthouse connection. Bob Guccione bet really hard on Caligula. if you're familiar with that song.
Oh, yeah.
And Caligula is largely, for people who don't know, a mainstream sword and sandals epic that also has these big Roman orgy scenes with real unsimulated sex in them.
Maybe even more of a disaster while in production than Showgirls, although I do understand that there was a bit of a butting of heads between Eszterhas and Verhoeven, but we'll get into that later.
Not quite the same as the butting of heads between Gore Vidal and Bob Guccione, for sure. Well, and that's the thing is, like, historically, I mean, prehistorically, this sort of separation of arts and sex work is relatively new. You know, in plenty of old days, there's actually a great movie about like the Restoration Theater called Stage Beauty with Billy Crudup playing like one of the most famous actresses at that time. And a lot of what you did as an actor in many different cultures over many different societies intersected with sex work, intersected with look at Kabuki theater, for instance, right? Every actor in that was also working after the show.
That's also how it works in the New Hampshire community theater scene as well, I will say, after having spent 10 years up there.
Well, and in New Hampshire, of course, no money exchanges hands because everyone uses "Don't tread on me" flags as currency.
It's always lovely when the wizard comes to town and brings us fireworks for your 11th birthday up there in New Hampshire.
So once we get to the 90s, everyone is really big on erotic thrillers, and most of these movies are not very good.
I would say they're neither erotic nor thrilling.
I wouldn't go
You
that
ready for
far.
this?
I mean, some of them have their thrills, and they do have their eroticism. If you really want to see Michael Douglas go to town on somebody, like, you've got like 12 movies you can look at.
Yeah, Sharon Stone is very hot in Basic Instinct.
Yeah,
like that.
Basic Instinct is where the Hungarian lunatic Joe Eszterhas teamed up with our good big Dutch boy Paul Verhoeven, who was going away from his 80s peak of action movies. Right, he had made like really interesting like historical dramas in the Netherlands, came to the U.S. and did shit like RoboCop and Total Recall, and then he did Basic Instinct with Eszterhas on like a $42 million budget, which is a pretty big budget. Mm-hmm. That movie grossed over $350 million globally. It was the number one movie in Spain. It was the number one movie in Australia that year. It was the number one movie in the UK that year. It wasn't quite number one in the US, but it made a ton of money.
I mean, part of the reason why I love Showgirls is that he brings his signature satire to it. It's just lost on so many people because I feel like sex it makes it so difficult for people to see things. I just think it kind of obscures his message and what he was trying to get across. Yeah,
I mean, he makes cartoons, right? He makes cartoons for adults that just happen to star live action people in them.
And sometimes they're about the military industrial complex or over policing, and other times they're about performative like sexuality and sex work.
And the reason why Verhoeven was so at the top of the world at this point is because most of the audience didn't get it, even for RoboCop, even with the obvious commercials and the "I'd buy that for $1" stuff. Like, it's still like the 80s really just were like that. And so a lot of people went and saw that movie and thought, well, this is just a movie about a really cool robot who shoots people in the dick. And with Showgirls, they were expecting another Basic Instinct. Basic Instinct had gotten cut down to an R rating after some back and forth with the MPAA, but Showgirls was going to be the big budget, huge, hyped up movie rated NC-17 showing at all theaters nationwide. This was the first time it was going to happen. And the studio MGM put so much behind that in order to make that happen. And as we all know, Showgirls flopped, right? The critics hated it. Even like the actors going into it, they thought this is going to be such a huge project. Maybe there will be Oscar consideration. You know, my career is going to just fucking shoot like a slingshot after this. And that is just not what happened, because people saw this thing and were very unkind to it.
Yes. Including Kyle MacLachlan himself, who was like, had I known this was the movie I was signing up for, I wouldn't have done it. Yeah. And that was in the sort of the immediate aftermath of it. Over the years, he's softened a lot on it as it has become sort of a cult classic. But he was just like, this was not the movie that I thought it was when I signed on the dotted line.
And you can tell that with the performances in the movie. Verhoeven is a very good director of actors, and he is able to get everyone onto his cartoonish style without them ever getting self-aware about it.
And I think there's no better example of one of those performances than what we get from Elizabeth Berkley. Just for a little bit of background on her, she was born and raised in Farmington Hills in the great state of Michigan. That's a pretty wealthy suburb of Detroit.
Okay.
She went to Cranbrook, and if you know, you know.
I've been to Cranbrook.
I know you have,
Wait.
AJ.
I don't know.
They flew me out to Cranbrook along with the entire original cast of Puffs because they were doing Puffs and they wanted to interview us. They paid for our flights. They paid for our housing. They paid for everything. And you get there and it is like a very beautiful campus that like has like, I think the cafeteria is from like the founding of America, basically. It's just like this old converted church and the grounds have like groundskeepers. There's somebody who is hired on site just to maintain a house that has been there since the 1800s and like reupholster things. And that's this person's whole job. And he had the unfortunate task of telling us, the cast of Puffs, about how a chair was upholstered and could not keep our attention for more than maybe 15 seconds at a time.
Is this an art school like Interlochen, or is this just a very rich school
it's a
with a good arts
general
program?
day and boarding school. And there's a few of these in Oakland County, which is
Interesting.
the like really, really where all the really wealthy suburbs of Detroit are.
Okay.
If you're from Michigan, especially Eastern Michigan, you know what somebody's class positioning is if they went to Cranbrook.
Okay.
Anyway, Elizabeth gets her big breakout in Saved by the Bell. She's cast as Jessie Spano. Saved by the Bell runs. The original show actually only ran for 4 seasons, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
Right.
But there was a series of spin-offs that, of course, would continue that story. And so that put her on a trajectory, right? She was sort of on the ingenue trajectory. And this is where, Renee, I have a question for you, because, you know, you... in many ways, I think we're on this trajectory early on. You know, you were in successful roles doing television like as a teenager and doing shows for teenagers. And do you see any parallels between that and sort of what you see Elizabeth Berkley doing in her career at this time?
Well, I'm going to start off by saying I think the child actress to therapist trajectory just kind of speaks for itself.
Oh, that's your trajectory, right?
Yeah, I really felt for Elizabeth in that it really did seem like she was convinced that she was going to take that next step in her career. Like this was going to be the beginning of her being a star of the silver screen, and obviously she got dragged for it. I think that it's better late than never that we're giving her flowers now.
Yeah.
I made the transition into sex work around 2020 when a lot of people did. However, yes, I played a teenager for a very long time. When I was younger, I played slightly older. I also played younger. But then when I got older, I got kind of stuck in like playing 15, 16 for like a pretty long time.
Yeah.
However, and this was my radicalizing moment, I had a photo leak happen when I was around 21. And that was something that was very new at the time. This wasn't like, you know, something that had happened to like damn near everyone in the industry.
Right.
I was probably the smallest name that was like somewhat recognizable, like within the celebrity component of like this photo leak. This guy also stalked and did the same thing with children he'd meet in chat rooms. So not a great guy.
You're telling me this guy who leaked a whole bunch of private photos is not a good guy?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Pretty horrible. You know, obviously they were Jane Does in the case, but it was definitely something that changed the trajectory of my career. When you are on like an ABC Family show and you're working predominantly in that world, most people do not want to hire somebody that has pretty explicit nudes available if they put your name into Google.
Yeah.
So you do a lot of auditions where you got kind of like to the test part and then suddenly just they went another direction. But yeah, it was definitely a radicalizing moment in that I got a lot of hate online. I didn't go on Twitter for like years because it was just people saying, it's Christmas today, you should kill yourself, basically, for years and years. But it was so wild to me. And I think that that sex is, and this is something that I paused because I think I just heard a Verhoeven quote that was very similar to this, that sex is such a part of people's everyday lives and that we don't like really know how to handle that or what to do with that. And I also too have always found it so strange that that sex is so bad, but violence is just, you know, so easily accepted in film. But yeah, I do feel like that was a big part of me kind of changing directions. Number one, I had a lot of empathy for people that experienced, you know, similar instances of intrigue and stigma where everyone wants to talk about it, but everybody also wants to condemn you. It's kind of like going to a restaurant, ordering a meal, and then throwing it back in the waitress's face. It's like, no, this is like, you look this up yourself, dude. Why are you coming over to tell me what a terrible person I am?
I'm always amazed by that reaction that especially heterosexual men have to like seeing a woman naked, that they're like, great, I hate her now. Yeah,
it was really difficult for me to reconcile. And, obviously this is something that the majority of sex workers, face on a daily basis, especially considering that, rather somebody is full service and has like a Twitter that they advertise through, or somebody who's like an adult performer, you have to interact online, with the public, and you hear a lot of really bad stuff that's kind of like levied or thrown at you. So I think that was a big part of my transition into this world and ultimately my activism.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost that thing of just like, how dare you make me horny? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like there seems to be like a loss of control that they like really panic over.
And that's the thing that like Dobson pushed, right? We talked about that with Ted Bundy. There he is the day before he's getting executed, talking to James Dobson, author of such books as You Should Hit Your Kids More and
it's not
You
the
Should
literal
Hit Your
title,
Kids
but
Even More.
Chicken Soup for the Abusive Soul really sold really
and
well.
He's talking to this child psychologist and saying, oh yeah, the reason why I killed all of these women and children as well, he killed a lot of little girls, which I feel like people gloss over when it comes to Ted Bundy, was because I saw porno magazines in the woods, was because like I moved to New York and I was able to go and, see adult movies at the theater and buy, magazines and everything. And they just drove me into such a lather. All of these women who have decided to take their clothes off in front of a camera have made me need to rape and kill.
And it's a great way of skirting responsibility, I feel like, as
absolutely.
well. And this is something that we've seen even recently. They tried to get internet addictive disorder and hypersexuality added to the DSM. It's like, these are not real, because they also can't be defined. Like, what is the normal amount of sex? Is it a certain amount of partners? Is it a certain amount of frequency? Like, there is no like sort of static normal of like what sex is. It's what feels right and what feels good and is consensual. Yeah, ultimately. But I do think that the desire to blame things on sex addiction is certainly something that we haven't seen go away, but is also not recognized as a real thing. And
it's, if anything, it's growing more and more right at this particular moment.
Well, all of this comes back to a project of control, right? Mm-hmm. And when you talk about something like Showgirls, I think what's so interesting is that it is a project where, although everything surrounding the production of it and the advertising it and the release of it was in control, they were in control of a narrative in this case. Once it was released, people went fucking nuts about this because suddenly, I don't know if it was that, I saw this woman become nude and it made me horny and therefore I got mad or what. But, oh man, the reviews for this movie are fucking nuts.
Yeah. One of the only reviews that I think is not embarrassing to read now is Roger Ebert's. And Ebert had written X-rated movies before. Beyond the Valley of the Dolls is itself a cult classic. And
one of the biggest breast men in pretty much all criticism.
And he talks about this movie. He talks about this movie in very negative terms. He's like, it's not erotic. I'm not enjoying seeing all the breasts. Right. Almost getting it.
Do you know how hard you have to work?
He's also very...
Roger Ebert be like, less boobs, please.
He's also very correct about Elizabeth Berkley's performance, right? Everyone else is calling her the worst actor of all time, just like the devil. And Roger Ebert is like, she's always fun to watch. Every time she's on screen, I am so interested in all the choices that she's making. It's a terrible screenplay. But I really, he says it right. He's like newcomer, and I think that like she has potential to be a big star. But this destroyed any chances of big stardom that she had after this movie. I mean, this was damaging to Joe Eszterhas. He was the biggest screenwriter in Hollywood at the time. He got $4 million up front for Showgirls. That was a tenth of the budget of the whole movie.
Holy. Okay, and point of order, he got 1.5 million of that dollars off of a napkin that he wrote the pitch on.
Yeah, I mean, this guy printed money at that point in time. And then this movie, there was another movie that came out in the same year. They were both huge flops, and that kind of spelled the ending for him. Paul Verhoeven was like, well, I guess I'll go back to doing action movies, did Starship Troopers, which underperformed.
I'm just thinking about the cocktail napkin right now. Like, I'm just imagining what he wrote on there. It's like, what if we did All About Eve, but in a strip club?
he just drew 2 boobs and then put a $sign next to it.
Yeah, writes All About Eve, but then somehow turns the E's in Eve into tits.
Oh,
Love it.
You see this in the reviews too, as well as then subsequent coverage of Elizabeth Berkley. It's not just that they hated the performance; they were actively mean to her as a person. And I think this connects back to what you were saying earlier, Renee, about how like it's not just sufficient to clown on what it is that you're doing professionally. They make it a mission to just ruin this woman's life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think there's 2 interesting things going on here. Like, number one, I feel like rather you go to a strip club and you decide to do VIP, for example, right? You're hoping for that home run. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in the way that Showgirls was marketed, it sort of sold you on this is going to be the most erotic movie that you've ever seen. Yeah. And then you left the theater after an hour and a half being like, I spent a lot of money and I'm not sure I got what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing would be specifically Elizabeth Berkley's reception after this performance of people taking it to that next level and like wanting to, perhaps put some of that shame onto her and make her feel, the weight of like what she did that was so wrong when they chose to go see this movie themselves.
Yeah, and I will say that for those who left at an hour and a half, I wish that were me. Act 1 of this movie does not wrap up until an hour and 40 into this movie. And then acts 2 and 3 are like 10 minutes apiece.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. I mean, you can understand why this movie does so well in home video, not just because there's a lot of tits and so people are just rewinding and pausing a lot, not paying attention to the story or whatever, but like also because homosexuals were having a great time, right? When this thing finally got that big VIP DVD set in like 2005 that came with 2 shot glasses and nipple tassels, I mean, they knew who their audience was at that point.
Wasn't this also, if I recall correctly, the mid 90s was when bisexuals were invented, right? That was when
the
they began
Newsweek
existing.
article.
Newsweek, right.
Newsweek.
No, Time didn't know about bisexuals for another 43 years. It hasn't happened yet.
Not until they made bisexuals the person of the year when they made all of us the person of the year.
And Paul Verhoeven, I guess Eszterhas too, but apparently this is a big Verhoeven thing, is he just loves bisexual women. He loves making his villains into bisexual women. And so it happened with Basic Instinct. It's happening here. And then Gina Gershon basically made a whole career out of being a bisexual villain.
She's incredible.
She's so
incredible.
Good.
I don't have enough words to praise her performance in this movie, but I will try.
Yeah, she is someone who knows exactly what Joe Eszterhas has written, and she is going to deliver every fucking letter of those lines with as much relish as possible.
Absolutely. But I mean, the movie itself opens with relish, right? Like when the very opening of it finds us in the mountains, 342 miles away from Las Vegas, and we see this lady. Ooh, she's so sexy. This blonde lady. She's wearing a black leather jacket. She's the cool girl. And she hitches a ride in a pickup truck and pulls a switchblade on the driver.
So, you got a name? I'm Jeff.
Know me.
What kind of name is that?
My mom was Italian.
Italian, huh? You one of those mafia girls? That why you got your blade? What are you going to Vegas for? You gonna win?
I'm gonna dance.
Maybe one of them real, like, private escort dancers? Okay, I'm sorry.
It's such an odd scene, and it does this thing that a lot of the scenes in this, like everything is always shifting. Who is a danger to who? Are they going to kill each other? Are they friends? Do they love each other? This is like a really basic setup for how every scene in this movie is going to go, but in the least human way possible. It's just like, here's a knife, the truck is veering all over the road, then they kind of settle down, then he steals her luggage. Like
this feels like a scene from an anime, right? This guy pulls up.
The guy looks like a guy from an anime.
He pulls up, he's a greaser, right? There's also a lot of Twin Peaks in this, and not just because Kyle MacLachlan is in this, but also because the leaning into the melodrama and the greasers that are inexplicably just here in 90s Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have this whole back and forth, and it starts with a switchblade, and then she starts hitting him, and they start palling around. You're like, oh, okay, so this will be like the main dynamic of the movie. And no, we don't see this guy.
There are so many characters in this movie.
Well, because again, when you're writing on cocaine, so I've heard, you're not like very detail oriented, right? It's just like, and then there's a new guy and he's a greaser and ooh, she pulls out a switchblade and then it's like, do 2 more rails. It's like, what was I talking about again? Oh, right. She's going to go play the slots for a while. There's be like this skeezy guy who comes up because it turns out that the greaser's uncle owns a casino.
That's right.
And that will never be brought up again.
Yeah, Renee, what are your thoughts on Jeff?
He's a lot. Also, I'm curious with those kind of connections why he needs her suitcase.
She doesn't have anything valuable in there. You know that.
100%. It's just never really explained. I do appreciate him coming back to kind of bookend the story.
Yeah.
Although I will say I recently saw The Last Showgirl with Pamela Anderson. Have any of you guys?
I haven't watched it yet.
That?
No, I've heard it's great.
Pamela is absolutely incredible in that role. And when I was watching it, I was like, this is what would have happened if Nomi stayed. This is what would have happened if like Nomi didn't get in the pickup truck and get out of Las Vegas, just kind of like standing in the shadows of something that used to be really great and used to be a really big deal and now is like somewhat defunct.
So AJ, you mentioned that Nomi gets propositioned by this guy in the casino and she storms off angrily. This is the first instance of that. It will not be the last. She loves to storm away angrily.
Prompted or no, she's just bolting.
She always, through the end of this movie, asserts her boundaries, which I think is actually really interesting.
One of the things that she then realizes after storming off from the confrontation with this guy is that she has actually left her suitcase in the truck. But she gets back to the truck and, oh my God, the truck's gone. She no longer has her luggage. She runs across the street.
This fucking music.
She gets to the parking lot. It's not there. What to do? We gotta freak out. She freaks out. Starts whacking a car.
Yeah, a stranger's car.
She pukes.
Yeah, and gets into like a fist fight with this random woman. Runs across the street, and the random woman grabs her before she gets run over, and then they kind of nuzzle for a bit.
Yes.
So like the love theme comes on?
Yes. So this right here, when we got that rule of threes with that music sting, I was like, oh, this movie knows exactly what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think for everybody, there's obviously been interviews in the time since where Elizabeth Berkley was like, no, I was just Verhoeven was telling me to do all of this stuff, right? I was playing it pretty straight, and he was like, really, just as big as you can go, right? And I think it's all to the effect that like this is sort of the kind of thing that the system of the entertainment industry will force you to do. It forces you into these extremes emotions and extreme situations that start kind of getting under your skin and so slowly become a part of who you are.
Yeah, and she's young and she's working on the biggest project of her life, right? She's done this sort of, Saved by the Bell has a very large cultural imprint, right? It was big in the Tiger Beat magazine side of things, but it's not a respected show by any means. And then she gets the biggest show in town with Paul Verhoeven, who is so well respected, so established. He's worked with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's worked with Sharon Stone. Like it's all. Yeah, of course you're going to do what he says, right? Of course you're going to follow that vision that he has for this movie because it has worked so many times in the past. Later on, he has said he feels really bad that the movie affected her career in the way that it did.
As we have already heard, everything about this movie is cocaine, as AJ was saying. The choices around the speed of the edit, the music, everything. It's just
the pages themselves made of cocaine. Very hard to read.
And what has now happened is that Nomi, having smacked this lady's car around, has made her new best friend in the whole wide world.
Yeah.
Because the lady comes up to the car and is like, stop whacking my car. And then after Nomi pukes, she realizes that she desperately needs a friend. So that friend here is Molly.
Yeah.
And I guess they're immediate best friends and maybe lovers. Not really, but
it kind of feels like they should be because they're so physically affectionate with each other. And it turns out, end up being the single relationship that anchors everything else. None of the other relationships matter. This is the one that is the most intense, the most affectionate and the most important.
If I remember when I was preparing for this, I listened to an interview with Eszterhas, and he was talking about how he saw this movie as like innocence and corruption. And I feel like that relationship, I mean, specifically too, what ends up happening to Molly in the end of the film is like the only person that's really innocent ends up like drawing the short straw,
right?
And ending up, experiencing the worst abuse out of everyone. And for the most part, like Nomi kind of gets away scot-free. Right. And it seems like Crystal's gonna be fine. I've got plenty of roses in her her hospital room. She has not been forgotten yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that there might be something there that he was really trying to push very heavy-handedly at the audience of the corrupt and the innocent and how they relate to one another.
I mean, as we've said before, like I think I agree with Roger Ebert that this is like the screenplay is the biggest offender of like everything in this movie. Yeah. Like I think that what Verhoeven has done with it and the acting choices that have been done with the script are pretty much 2-1 perfect to like give this version to the screen. But like there is something that is so very weird about the fact that Molly has to suffer for the sins that Nomi commits throughout the course of this.
I mean,
right?
I guess I would. Part of the reason why I think it's so interesting is that it's not suffering for anyone's sins. There isn't this, oh, look at how far Nomi falls and then she gets sort of what's coming to her by getting into these dangerous environments. It's like, no, this happens to people who don't deserve it. This happens to people for basically no reason. And it's almost like it's always showing you, okay, this is going to be the thing that gets Nomi. She's gotten too close to the sun. She's gotten too close to the sun. Here's another dangerous person that's in her orbit. But no, that's not life. That's not the way things work. It's weird to say that, oh yeah, there's something kind of realistic in this Joe Eszterhas screenplay. But yeah.
And similarly, I think with Julie's character, for instance, if you remember, she's the one that throws the crystals.
Yeah.
Oh, the girl with the braids. Yeah.
Never trust a white girl with braids. Never trust a white girl with braids. That is the biggest takeaway of this film. But yeah, like you see people that are enacting violence against one another, attempting to sabotage each other, and then just never being like held accountable.
Right.
Which I think is another.
Oh my God, layer. I forgot she completely gets away with it. There are no consequences for that.
Yeah.
Wow.
With an assist from Nomi, I will add. We'll get to that bit later. Right now, I would like you to hear, dear listener, what an average conversation in this movie sounds like. This is Molly talking to Nomi right after Nomi has gotten done smacking the shit out of and puking on Molly's car.
So, what was in your suitcase?
Nothing, just my stuff. Everything I had. I just got here.
You know anybody here? You got any family that you can call?
I don't have any family.
Where are you from?
Back east.
From where back east?
Different places.
I wish the audience could see what is happening visually. The noise that you heard initially is like her like stabbing at the ice in her Coke as she's talking, and then eventually it becomes her just like throwing the Coke and the French fries like everywhere when she exclaims different places. Another Spinal Tap reference, but this movie goes to 11, and Elizabeth Berkley is just like she must have been exhausted after these shoots.
Especially, not even just the dancing. Like any of these scenes, she's having to do so much.
Which, by the way, an incredible dancer, like obviously aced all of the choreo. However, there's something that, again, going back to that erratic, not erotic theme, it feels like drill team. Like everything feels very stiff. Yeah, it's all stiff and it's all kind of whipping around all the time. That was another Roger Ebert comment, was like, if this is how the girls in Vegas dance, they must be going to the chiropractor every day, you know?
Right. And it is explained sort of later in the script in a way that I actually found very surprising, that like, when they describe how she dances, they're like, yeah, she is a little bit erratic. And it was like, oh, this was a choice that they made. This is not just like she comes in there and is just like punching the air like she's being dodged by demons. Like she is like it is a part of her character. Yeah. And I will say James Smith had some very questionable ideas about what talent looks like.
I can't claim to be like a talent scout of any sort, but there's nothing about these moves that are making me go, wow, now this is somebody who really gets it. And that, again, it's an intentional choice, right? Like, we get to the backstage at the big strip show in Vegas.
The biggest show is at a place called the Stardust, and Molly is the costume designer.
And she also just works as, she does basic seamstress work backstage as well, just to, keep the show running. And she basically drags Nomi along to watch the show. There's a nice little bit of foreshadowing here where they're all going down the stairs, and one of the dancers says, regarding Crystal, the star of the show, wouldn't it be great if someday she fell off the stairs?
Someone did a second pass at this script.
So this is one where I was not really able to pull a clip of the show because it's pretty much completely visual.
Yeah.
I would like us as a group to do our best to describe what happens in this show because it's amazing.
So very clearly, Joe Eszterhas, the year before, did some of his signature cocaine and went to go watch a film called The Flintstones. And in that, he saw a model for the Vegas show he would eventually write, and also a star of his movie, one Kyle MacLachlan. There's a scene where MacLachlan is walking across the stage with the volcano in the background. I'm like, this is just the Flintstones again.
We're in the prehistory, and everyone is dancing around, and there's a volcano. The volcano explodes fully, breaks apart, and Gina Gershon emerges. Then everyone takes their tops off. There's also, we find out later on that the act before it is a chimpanzee act. So I think more than the Flintstones, I think that this is 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it's an entire erotic dance sequence tracing the evolution of humanity.
That actually sounds right to me.
That really
because
tracks,
that explains also the motorcycle part later on, that like now we've achieved the industrial age.
Titties through the ages.
Now we have found our destiny with the motorcycle.
Wow, I never would have arrived at that. Thank you for sharing that with me. That's really great.
That's what we're here for.
I'm looking forward to the next watch through, honestly. I just wanted to offer the sort of like references maybe to sort of like a Ziegfeld Follies kind of vibe, like these sort of like big musical numbers. And also too, I feel like Crystal emerging from the volcano. There's also another scene where we see Zach kind of like show like his dark side in front of that same volcano. And it kind of feels like the place where all things bad come from.
Yeah. And I mean, thinking about a volcano, there's a lot of talk about cum and ejaculation and things, the volcano being this.
A lot of very frank discussion of it.
Which I think was pretty
shocked.
surprising for a mainstream movie of the 90s. There's also, that Ziegfeld Follies, it kept making me think of Busby Berkeley for some reason as I was watching this, like Gold Diggers. And it's not done in the Busby Berkeley style, which is like, let's just get 100 ladies on stage, have them do like one simple motion. But the way that it's shot, it alternates between two different things. We see this volcano dance 3 times, and it's either the first time it's showing you, it's almost like the movie doesn't want you to get lost in the routine. They want you to feel almost like a news station has come by and they're like, here's a show playing at the Stardust today. It's sort of these objective angles and weird angles. And then the other way that dance sequences are shot, and sometimes it's in the same sequence alternating back and forth, is from the perspective of one of the dancers as they're getting through the routine. But it's never going fully into the Busby Berkeley, let this whole thing wash over you feeling.
Well, the thing that we also get out of this show, along with, I guess, sort of the view from 20,000 feet up, right, is the introduction of the character Crystal Connors.
Yes.
Crystal is, as we have been mentioning, played by Gina Gershon. The idea here is that, she is the one who is the big star of not just this show, but Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And Nomi is introduced by Molly to Crystal, and this is what happens.
You were really great tonight, Miss Crystal.
Thanks, darling.
This is my friend Nomi. She's a dancer, too.
Is she now?
Yes, and she's really good.
Where do you dance at, darling?
At the Cheetah.
I don't know how good you are, darling. And I don't know what it is you're good at. But if it's at the Cheetah, it's not dancing, I know that much.
You don't know shit.
Storms out of the room.
That's number 2 for those of you keeping track at home.
Connors.
Crystal. I told you.
Crystal.
Your friend has nice nails.
She does them herself.
Maybe she can do mine sometime.
I love all the nail talk.
Yeah, speak on it. Speak on it.
It's so good. Okay, so I think it might be Adam Naiman who said this, and I'm gonna obviously butcher. But my takeaway was, it's like Martians came to Earth and heard women have like two conversations, and it suddenly becomes this like, I am human, are you human? It's like, I am woman, I have nails, do you have nails? And and then the conversation can begin once we have checked in and established that we are both, in fact, human females.
The first time I watched this movie was for my friend back, this will date it pretty perfectly, but back in the 2010s was starting a blog where she would make up drinking games for various movies. And so we watched Showgirls with the drinking game rules. And one of them was anytime they talked about nails, we would drink. So I don't remember a lot of that viewing experience. This is my first time actually sitting down and watch the whole thing. But yeah, it is very strange the way that women speak to each other in this film.
There's something about the direction that makes it so that it's not just what's on the page. There's something else going on here.
Something that actually feels real about this exchange is it does seem that Crystal is like already thinking about some way that she's going to humiliate this woman.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's not the course that she like ends up going down, but it ends up being like the audition, it ends up being like the strip club, but it seems like the wheels are already turning of I don't like this girl, and like how can I put myself in a scenario to put her in her place?
Right. She seems like somebody that I could very easily dominate, and I'm going to try and do that at some point.
She's drawn up the same way as the men, right? She is just as predatory. Her entire existence is to find someone to prey upon, just as all of the other men in this movie do.
Yeah, and there is also sexual attraction there too, as well. So.
Absolutely. And I think that it also, one thing that I find interesting about this movie is there's zero solidarity between any of these women.
Right.
With the exception of like Molly, but Molly's very much on the outside. But like of the sex workers, like in general, there's even that moment where it's like, you're a whore, darling.
Yeah.
You know, like you are trying so hard to like distance yourself from like, this industry, this transactional exchange, right? They give us the money, we show them what they want to see, kind of vibe. But at the same time, like, also too, I don't think that Crystal Connors is like a beacon of sex worker solidarity.
Right. And we'll see more examples of this as we progress. I think that if the movie has a directorial thesis, and again, I don't think this is really so much in the writing as it is the direction, it's this idea that any attempt to sort of play by the terms of and compete for the benefit of patriarchy is an inherently doomed endeavor. That no matter what, you're always, the house always wins, right? And it's set in Vegas, so this makes sense. This is dramaturgically sound.
Yes, and that it will purposely go out of its way to pit you against each other, and that will bring about your destruction.
Yeah, I think one of the only places where we do start to see some solidarity is at the Cheetah Club. Is at the low down seedy club, and specifically what we see with Henrietta Bazoom.
Yes, the sort of like house mom, house dad like thing is like extremely interesting.
Yeah.
I think that there's also something, interesting that we see around this sort of like proximity to power, right? And that sort of a scarcity mindset where it's like, hey, maybe I can't be a CEO, but maybe I can marry him, if that makes sense. And being willing to cut like other women's throats because there's only one good man, there's only one good job, there's not enough for all of us. So we have to kind of be at each other's throats. I think that's a theme we see for sure.
And there's something sort of inherently camp too about Nomi's desire to be a dancer in this particular show, because we see the show and we see her watch the show with like these wide-eyed, like googly eyes. It's just like, this is terrible. This is a terrible, terrible show. And this is all you want forever? Like, it sets it like we are clearly in the world of cartoon. And Josh, to answer your question from a long time ago, actually, about what I think makes this camp and like what makes things camp and survive as classics is the earnestness of it, right?
Yes.
Everyone in this movie is very earnestly trying to make the best movie that they can, and I think they succeed.
So I'm going to gloss a little bit of plot here. Nomi is just so thrilled by the show. Not quite so thrilled by the encounter with Crystal, but, whatever. She's all right. They go to a dance club, and Nomi busts out some truly extraordinary moves. Again, I can't really clip this. You just kind of got to see it. But this dancing, her dancing, I think it's sort of supposed to be a subversion of like their Dirty Dancing, the hot girl
Flash
does
dance,
the moves and gets noticed, flash dance, whatever. This attracts then the attention of this guy named James, and this guy's a real fucking pervert. You're supposed to really like him. It seems, at least as written, he's sort of supposed to be the nice guy. She kicks him in the dick because he says that she is, and I quote, teasing my dick. And they all get into a huge fight in the club. James gets fired because I guess he worked there. He goes to jail to bail Nomi out. And yeah, we're going to be seeing a lot of old James. This is our opportunity to sort of talk about him a little bit.
Well, okay, so you think that this is setting up that James will be fired from at least 3 jobs over the course of this. And as it turns out, he's fired from 2 of them. And that drives me insane. This could have been an incredible bit where any new establishment they walk into in the movie, there's James, and he immediately gets fired. But no, Josh, you're right. He's presented as the nice guy alternative, but he also treats her like shit. And again, I think that leads to the greater thesis of this movie, which is anyone who is peripherally involved in the entertainment industry is only out for themselves and will fuck you over at the drop of a hat, and especially if you are in fact a woman.
Renee, I think you had mentioned James earlier, right?
Yeah, as having had some very questionable ideas about what an amazing dancer looks like. She's got real talent. Okay, man.
It should also be said, he is also not dancing well either.
No, and that's actually a really, really important point. That James's whole character, his reason, his raison d'etre, right, is he trained at Alvin Ailey.
He's the true artist.
He's gotten to Las Vegas and has had to slum it for a while, but he has dreams of sort of reincorporating his dance in a more artistic way. But every time you see him dance, it's fucking awful.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the discomfort of, when I was single and dating and somebody wants to play you their music.
That's so dangerous.
Please don't do that.
That's
Please
so
don't.
fucking dangerous. Having a guy play music for you on a date, that's tough. But when a guy goes up to the jukebox and cues up "The Boys Are Back in Town" 20 times, that's how you know you found a winner.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I feel like this is actually a somewhat conscious thing the movie is doing. Somewhat. Is that here's supposed to be, right? It's it's introducing a trope and subverting it and not going much further than that to deepen it.
Right.
But being okay, here's the good guy. Here's the guy with artistic integrity. He doesn't have the big contracts. He's not working at the seedy joints. He's trying to make real dancing happen. But no, this guy sucks. He's talks about her having this special talent and he tries to get her to stop fucking other people just because he wants her to fuck him. And he goes to every other skinny blonde lady and is like, you have all this talent. He says the exact same lines to them. I want to make this new routine just for you, just so that he can fuck them.
We move on, after this whole dance thing, we actually get to go to the Cheetah.
Yeah.
We get to see Nomi at her place of work.
Cheetah is being run by Robert Davi, just playing his scummiest that he's ever done.
Hey! I want you to meet Hope.
Hi.
Okay, cut it out. Hope, this is Tiffany, Farrah, Heather, and Marietta.
My name isn't Hope. My name's Penny.
They want class, dum-dum. They don't want to fuck a Penny. They want to fuck a Heather or a Tiffany or a Hope. Huh?
This is, of course, calling back to the famous show business movies, A Star is Born, where they have the whole meeting. It's okay, what is your name actually going to be? We're not using your real name. We got to go with a name that makes you a star.
I think this is the most grounded performance in the whole film. And it's fascinating because he's saying very terrible things, but his eyes look so sad. And so I find myself weirdly bonding with this guy.
The one thing I would add to that is he's honest.
Yeah.
And I think that's one reason why it translates that way. It's not somebody that's saying, hey, you're going to have a great time. None of these guys are going to touch you. It's going to be fine. And then throwing somebody to the wolves. It is very explicit up front. You know what you're kind of getting into. And I think that adds, I don't know, isn't the right word, but there's something more trustworthy about him than many of the other characters that we see.
Well, and I feel like this kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, too, with the difference between a lot of work in traditional entertainment where you get locked into contracts or you have predatory agents or whatever who are just trying to get something out of you, as opposed to a lot of adult entertainment where you're able to do things largely on your own terms, right?
Absolutely. So like consent checklists and things like that ahead of time, you have it on paper, what you have agreed to do and what you have not agreed to do. Whereas I feel like when we're talking about the Stardust, they're sending these girls out to do boat shows, where they're making a lot of money to do things other than the original Yacht Girl.
It's what you find out that like getting to stardom, you don't have fewer demands, sexual demands made of you, and in many ways it's far sleazier because they sneak it up on you instead of just saying outright, okay, here's what it's going to be, and if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else now.
100%.
The other big thing that we see over at the Cheetah is Henrietta's act. Henrietta's kind of like the MC, I guess.
People call her Mama backstage.
Yeah, she's got a very kind of bawdy act. Here's a little bit of what that sounds like.
Hey, Henrietta! Hey! Pull your dress up!
Honey, you can never handle me with all these wrinkles of fat. Why, you never even find the thing. I'd have to piss on you to give you a clue.
I love her.
She's so great.
Renee, you are bouncing up and down. I would love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts on Henrietta.
Well, first of all, you made a joke specifically about Tim playing The Boys Are Back in Town over and over again. I watch this movie a couple dozen times a year.
Okay. Oh, wow.
So we both are of the perspective that if something is great, you should just enjoy it repeatedly over and over. Just really hammer it into the ground. The extraction of enjoyment comes through repetition.
She's played by Lynn Tucci.
Any relation to Stanley or not?
No, just not all Italians are related, Josh. Christ. People probably mostly know her for Orange is the New Black. This character, Henrietta Bazoom, has this like trick dress where the top of it sort of flops down so that her tits kind of pop out. I mean, I don't know. Anyone who's worked in burlesque knows a couple people like this, and they are the best people you will ever know. All the backstage scenes in this movie have a sort of reality to them that it's like, oh, I've been backstage at a show like this. I have been a part of something like this. Even there, there's drama, there's fun, there's chimpanzees at one point. These scenes are probably my favorite in the whole movie. The ones where you're just waiting for the show to start up and there's just chaos and everyone running around and everyone's got their tits out and trying to get the slinkiest, flimsiest clothing on in time to make it up the stairs for their entrance.
And I love the dynamic of Al Torres and Henrietta Bazoom.
Yeah.
Like there's something that feels like very parental about them in a way, specifically when they show up to visit Nomi at the Stardust. As well. But I feel like she's like part like DJ host. He's part like club manager, but also like house mom, house dad.
Mm-hmm.
And for people that aren't familiar with strip clubs, there typically is somebody backstage that is, making sure you have what you need and like collecting tip outs and things like that. But it's I think a really interesting use of those roles.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a piece of work that you've done as well, like dancing and stuff like that?
Yes, and I'm actually hoping to do some features in conjunction with my Penthouse win. They own a bunch of clubs, and specifically, I'm not here to talk about activism, but I am hoping to do a bunch of features and drum up some support for a young woman named Crystal Kaiser, whose appeal is coming up.
Oh wow!
Soon, so we're helping to kind of prepare on that end, and hopefully get some signatures and some support for her appellate team.
Well, we can certainly put that in the notes down below if we need to get some signatures for that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
How does this sort of compare then to the real thing? This movie's depiction.
I mean, I think that everything in this movie is obviously like a caricature.
Right.
But I do think that in order to be like a house mom, house dad, you have to have a pretty good rapport with the girls. And I do think that that's something that we kind of see there, even though that like Al is like kind of an asshole. There is a certain kind of rapport that he has built like with the dancers where he is showing up to kind of like congratulate them on things and whatever. I mean, everything in this movie is next level, but there's a grain of truth in there that makes sense.
The big sort of dramatic crux of this scene here, the Cheetah, is that Kyle MacLachlan shows up a lot with
the worst hair you've ever seen.
Oh my God, worst. alongside Crystal, who we'll remember from before is the best dancer in all of Las Vegas, I guess.
Certainly the fastest.
That's right. And that makes her the best. Crystal makes eye contact with Nomi. She immediately clocks the fact that it is Crystal. She storms off stage immediately. That's number 3 for those keeping track at home.
If you are playing your own drinking game at home, please.
And Crystal then propositions her for a private dance. Offers $500, and she takes it. And this scene, oh boy, words fail to describe visually what's going on here.
Yeah.
I mean, Renee, you've seen this movie dozens and dozens of times. How would you describe this private dance?
Well, I think that Gina Gershon nails the sort of like predatory vibe. Obviously this is not an accident. She brought the entertainment director, who she's also sleeping with, to the club for the purpose of humiliating this young woman, who obviously, met her, talked about her own dance experience, and it's like, hey, I'm going to give you a moment to humiliate yourself because you need the money. And I think that, again, that sort of like power struggle is something that we see throughout the movie. But yeah, there's a lot going on in this moment, including Zach coming in his pants at the end of the scene.
She gets so floppy, all of her clothes come off, and
she becomes nude.
She gets on top of him, and I don't know how she does it, honestly. She does this flopping fish thing.
A violent flopping fish.
No, she looks like she's in danger. Like we need to call a doctor.
Yeah, this isn't just a fish that has like landed and flopped up on shore and is trying to flop its way back.
This fish is on the hook.
This fish is on the line. Speaking as somebody who grew up doing quite a bit of fishing, I have seen this fish before.
Yes. Well, here's the thing, y'all. If nautical nonsense be something you wish.
And the whole idea is that, yes, she's dancing, but she's really fucking him, but she's not really fucking him.
Right.
But James... Remember James, our Alvin Ailey dancer? He has walked into the club, and he even sneaks back and kind of peeks through into the VIP room, and he sees her flopping like that and sees Kyle MacLachlan jizz in his pants. And this offends him so greatly. This is so important to his development as a character in this movie for some reason.
And so then James actually goes over to Nomi's place, which again, she's living with Molly basically in a trailer.
Yeah.
And he gives her some real fucking conversation.
You got more natural talent when you dance than anybody I've ever seen. Look, I've seen a lot of dancers. I studied in New York. Alvin Ailey. You burn when you dance.
Yeah, you said I couldn't.
Oh, you gotta hold some of it in. And you got some shit to learn. Dancing ain't fucking.
What's that? More wisdom? I know that.
No, you don't. You dance like when you fucked that guy last night.
What guy?
That guy with the chick. You took him in the back.
I didn't fuck him.
Yeah, you did. You fucked him and her.
Are you following me around? I didn't fuck anybody. I
saw you. Man, everybody got AIDS and shit. You know, what is it that you think you do? You fuck them without fucking them. That's what you do. Well, it ain't right.
What?
You got too much talent for it to be right.
Get out of here.
Bitch, I'm telling you the truth. You want me to go? I'm out of here.
What's happening here?
Joe Eszterhas, at this time, the highest paid screenwriter in Hollywood history.
Also the highest screenwriter in Hollywood history, I'm pretty sure.
I definitely think that there is a component of like possession, right?
Yeah,
so it's the idea that like, I want to sleep with you. I've tried to sleep with you. I wasn't able to sleep with you. It makes me upset that like I'm seeing somebody get gratification with you. I'm also like, have we established whether or not he actually believes that she has talent?
I think more than anything, he is sexually attracted to her. And maybe that does make him truly believe that he thinks that she has talent.
It's possible, but I do think that we kind of like establish him as like something almost akin to an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
Where it's like we see him repeat these things to other women that he wants to sleep with, right?
Specifically Penny.
Yes. Turns out somebody did want to fuck a Penny.
Hey! looks like James is a regular numismatist.
Yeah, that's right, Brian.
Yeah.
We've now sort of been following Nomi. We've heard her chat. We've heard her dance. We've heard her be propositioned by a guy named James and a number of other people. Will she achieve her dream of emerging from a volcano on stage at the Stardust? Well, you'll just have to wait to find out, folks.
Well, hey there, podcast listeners. Sexy Josh here, along with my partner in rhyme, Sexy Brian.
Ooh, Sexy Brian.
Based on the timbre of the sounds made by the slapping of my throat folds, I think you know what time it is. Ooh, yeah. We're about to get all NC-17 up in here.
That means there's too many boobies.
You and your partner are both raring to go. You've got that champagne popped, the music just right. You got all your juices flowing.
Juices flowing all over the boobies.
But not so fast, sex havers. Things have been feeling a bit stale lately, haven't they? Giving your partner the old Tippecanoe and Tyler 2 isn't resulting in the same presidency as before, if you know what I mean.
Doing a tactical strike in her Oval Office.
Well, fear not, you slap-happy fuckerinos, because I've got the move that will turn your I Like Ike into an all the way with JFK.
JFK's head is gonna blow your mind, just like Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh, yeah. You know the move I'm talking about. You hop up on your partner's luxurious lap, spread those long, luscious legs, and just sorta flop around.
Ooh, flopping around.
Most other sex moves require finesse and synchronicity, but not flopping around. Oh no. When you're flopping around, all you gotta do is jerk your body like you're actively being hit with 120 volts of pure love lightning. Oh, and this love lightning, it strikes twice. Lightning striking again.
For about 7 seconds.
Hey, shut up. Flopping around like a beached bass is the surefire way to make your partner beach that bass, if you know what I mean.
Deprive that dick of oxygen.
Do the move that puts the butt in halibut if you smell the catfish I'm cooking.
Ooh, catfish is so fragrant.
Put the pickle in her pickerel if you whiff the whiff I'm whiffing.
I don't know what.
Shut it down, clown. This is Sexy Josh's time to shine. And if he says we're pickling, we're gonna pickle.
Gonna pickle so hard. You can call me Sexy Brian. AJ wrote that. I don't want to take the blame for Sexy Brian N. AJ is making me sing it because he is the devil. And because I have said so many racist things about Italians.
You can flop around anywhere you like, whether it be at the local strip club, in your private pool, or behind all the animatronics in the Hall of Presidents attraction at Disney World.
Peaches and cream is just another presidential slogan that sounds sexual.
So, do the move that's sure to drive your partner wild and achieve the presidency maybe 3 times in one go to crown yourself the FDR of banging.
FDR stands for fucking Dynamo Roosevelt.
Flopping around. Once you flop, his dick will pop.
So we've been talking a lot about the role of cocaine in this movie, and I mean that from a practical perspective. A lot of cocaine was done to get this movie made. However,
McGruff would disapprove.
There is also a lot of cocaine in this movie.
Right.
Like, it is frequently portrayed in different ways, and I guess I'm curious to hear any thoughts about, like, when do we see the cocaine? How is it used? And what does this movie rhetorically want us to think about its utility?
Specifically, I think it's really interesting that Eszterhas wrote this like sleazy entertainment director who always seems to be the one with the coke. I feel like the first time we see it happen is Crystal reminding him as he's getting out of the limo that he has some coke on his nose.
Right.
And
this is Kyle MacLachlan again, for those of you keeping track.
Yeah. And then obviously when Nomi goes over to his house, he also offers her cocaine. But I do think that there's something very interesting about like being on cocaine and writing such a sleazy like entertainment like guy.
Yeah.
There's something there.
Some self-hatred, certainly. I mean, Kyle MacLachlan does so much cocaine in this movie, he cut off half of his bangs because he thought that would be a great idea.
But the thing is, Kyle MacLachlan is not the only sleazy entertainment guy in this movie either.
And all the women are also doing bumps of cocaine, except for Nomi.
Right.
Nomi, who has also been referred to as Pollyanna a couple times in this picture as well.
And every time there was a moment where somebody called her Pollyanna and she's like, what? Like she perked up real quickly when she heard that for some reason. Interesting.
It is funny that Crystal says that cocaine is good for her muscles or bones. I forget which one it is. I think it's muscles, but in my head I heard
What do you think bones are made out of?
But yes, Nomi is still at this point portrayed as being pretty essentially pure, right?
Yeah.
She goes to the mall. She buys a Versace dress. She thinks that it's called Versace.
Yeah.
And a guy comes by to offer her an audition.
Okay, ladies. I'm Tony Moss. I produce this show. Some of you probably heard that I'm a prick. I am a prick. I got one interest here, and that's the show. I don't care whether you live or die. I want to see you dance, and I want to see you smile. I can't use you if you can't smile. I can't use you if you can't show. I can't use you if you can't sell.
Nomi runs.
Spread out. Jesus Christ. Marty, take a look at these tits. What are these, watermelons? This is a stage, babe. It's not a patch. See ya.
There's something kind of Walton Goggins about that delivery.
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, so this is Tony Moss, the producer of the show.
Yeah, and he goes out of his way to make demands in a fashion that is deliberately designed to make the women feel uncomfortable, right? There's a point where they do the call, they get down to 3 girls and they have to take their tops off and see how they dance topless. But of course he does it in a way that is deliberately jarring and deliberately trying to provoke a response out of them because he likes to torment women.
Right. And again, this is a great contrast with Al, who we saw earlier, right? Who is also brutally honest in the way that Tony Moss is. But Al is not a sadist in quite the way that Tony Moss is, right?
And I think it's a great point to kind of look at the amplification of Al in mainstream. So it's a sort of like, it's the same thing, but like somehow worse and sleazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because this is legitimate. Cheetah is low down, dirty, disgusting. It's all of the things that people say about sex work. They hate it. It's demeaned. While this is the dream. This is dancing. This is not stripping. It's dancing. And yet you're on this level, and it's so much worse.
Right.
Than the money's probably better, but
well, and poor Nomi's getting it coming and going, right? Because not only is she getting harassed by Tony on the front end, right after that, Crystal comes up to her and is all weird to her as well. It's very clear that this is not going to be a safe work environment, to say the least.
Yeah.
But, Nomi just wants it so desperately. And then James shows up again, and we have to deal with more of his shit.
Yeah. This is where he finally gets revealed as like this hypocrite.
So right after getting out of her audition, she hangs out with James. They dance. They almost fuck, but not quite, because Nomi wants to be loved by him.
Yeah, she draws a very clear boundary once again. She walks out, but she doesn't storm out. She's just saying, I'm not going to fuck you. This was about dancing, and I'm going to go.
And just to trace the rest of that James storyline real quick, at one point, they do end up encountering each other again. And at that point, James has now sort of moved on. He's fucking another girl entirely.
Moved on. That's the thing.
That's true.
He's so mad at her for taking the Stardust gig instead of continuing to dance for him, because he wrote this whole routine just for her, and she looks immediately behind him and there's a naked woman in his bed, and it's Penny.
And this is one of those situations where we're really seeing who James is, which is to say a huge fucking hypocrite. I guess I'm curious to hear from anyone here in terms of what they think about James, because this is really the end of James's arc that we see in this movie. other than when Nomi goes to his like dance recital later, I guess.
And everyone boos.
Yeah, for reasons like, again, the dancing is no worse that he does than any other
he's
dance
just
in this
like
movie.
doing it at a nightclub, but it's supposed to be like a modern dance routine.
Just like a normal dance.
Yeah.
And it's like just kind of a normal dance club, and they're doing what isn't a strip routine, but isn't not a strip routine. Very strange.
They're blaring Coldplay's Fix You. They're falling on the ground. They're getting up.
Exactly.
You cannot trust a single man in this movie, even one who's going out of his way to like say, hey, I'm going to help you, right? I've made this thing for you.
Yeah, I think that also too, specifically his character is a really great illustration of like the quote unquote nice guy, where it's coming from a place that isn't genuine. It's coming, the niceness is being performed in a very transactional sort of way. I'm going to be nice to you so I can get the thing that I want from you, versus I'm showing you kindness because I'm just being a genuine like human being.
And, you know, he doesn't get what he wants. I mean, he does, like, he just moves on to the next one. And that's sort of the other thing that I think it illustrates about the whole industry, is that there will always be another penny.
I'm kind of curious because I feel like he's the only one that like we really see kind of crash and burn. Like his dream does not work out for him. He's going to have a baby that he doesn't necessarily want with a woman he barely knows. I feel like he's the only one that we see like real consequences of, like, this guy's going to be shut out from what he wants like forever.
It's also kind of weird that both of the characters who really kind of end up getting screwed over in this movie are black. You can't help but notice that.
Sorry, Josh.
100%.
Sorry, Josh. All three characters who get screwed over are black.
Yes.
Because you have the dancer who gets injured.
Annie?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course, yes.
I do think that there's a chance they were saying something with that. Also, that consequences kind of only hit like people that are less insulated from consequences. I definitely, there's something we said.
Yeah, I feel like even with the sense of James, though, is that he's kind of gonna be okay. Like, he doesn't get to do what he wants at all. Yeah. But he has this knack for being able to just go with the flow. And maybe if it were a better script, it would be a parallel with what happens with Nomi at the very end, right? Because he's getting out of it. He's leaving, and she literally also leaves, you know?
Well, let's take it back to Nomi's story now, because she gets called back for a rehearsal call after getting the part.
She has the one rehearsal, and she's on tonight. This is very 42nd Street. You're not going back to Allentown. You got to show everyone your gams.
But hey, she does great.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it, Crystal is wanting to have a special meeting with her. And so they go to dinner, the two of them, and they bond.
Do you like brown rice and vegetables?
Yeah,
You do.
it's worse than dog food. It is.
I've had dog food.
You have?
Long time ago. Doggy chow. I used to love doggy chow.
I used to love doggy chow too.
What is happening?
What
are we doing here?
Cheers, they like chips,
Yes,
right?
that's right. They
They're doing
cheers
the
the chips.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is, of course, they both grew up poor.
Oh, is that what it's trying to communicate?
Okay, wow, that does make it make a little more
Here
sense.
they are at this
I
restaurant.
guess.
This scene is also shot differently from basically every other scene in the movie. It just looks like it's from a different movie entirely. They're using kind of a longer lens. There's a lot of color to it. There's this bright blue wall behind them, sort of fake sky. They're holding this sort of bright orange champagne in front of them. It's really trying so hard to use the lenses and the angles to draw them together, because this is supposed to be an attempt at a seduction.
Isn't there something interesting that happens in this too? Doesn't like the camera like pan all the way around where Crystal's on one side and then she's on the other, and then it like kind of flip flops?
Yeah, it does the little like we have flipped the composition now at sort of the turning point of the scene. I find, like I said, the backstage scenes were kind of my favorite scenes of the movie. I think any scenes between Crystal and Nomi are my second favorite sets of scenes. Because the dialogue is so insane.
It's nuts. And Gina Gershon is making a fucking meal of it.
I mean, fearless. I don't know if anyone has seen like Killer Joe. another great NC-17 movie that she did, but she is unfucking stoppable in that movie.
I was actually really surprised that there's still NC-17 movies being made, because I thought this was really kind of the death knell for it. Like they made like sort of their big go for it, but then there have been several ones over the years, including like Steve McQueen did Shame.
Yeah,
you know,
on occasion.
like
Usually they're coming
like,
from another country. But yeah, William Friedkin made an NC-17 adaptation of the play Killer Joe. And then Netflix did its first NC-17 movie a few years ago with Blonde.
I wanted to pull it back, though, to this conversation, right? Because after the opening bonding and the toasting with the crackers, the conversation becomes charged and seductive.
You have great tits. They're really beautiful.
Thank you.
I like nice tits. I always have. How about you?
I like having nice tits.
How do you like having them?
What do you mean?
You know what I mean.
I like having them in a nice dress or a tight top.
Don't we all?
I like to have them in a boat. I like to have them in a
You
boat.
like to show them off.
I didn't like showing him off the cheetah.
Why not? I like looking at him there. Everybody liked looking at him there.
Made me feel like a hooker.
You are a whore, darling.
No, I'm not.
We all are. We take the cash, we cash the check, we show them what they want to see.
Maybe you are a whore, Crystal, but I'm not.
You and me, we're exactly alike.
I'll never be like you.
I mean, I was just like vibrating with excitement and hanging on every word that comes out of Gina Gershon's mouth. Yeah, it's like the writing is so strange. I'm so impressed with how like Gina is able to sell that dialogue.
Yes.
Like I do think that like when you are on set a lot of times and there's a moment like that, a lot of times you talk to the director, you talk to the like, does it have to be? Could we say it like this? Maybe I don't feel like she'd say. And clearly it was a no. Like we are sticking to the script, and she manages to sell it in a way that like I could not pull that performance out of me to save my life. But yeah, it also, I mean, it definitely feels like dialogue that's written by a man.
Yeah. What happens when two lesbians get together? They just talk about their tits the whole time.
Yeah, how their tits in a tight top. Like, I mean, just very strange.
The tip of the tit to the tip of the top.
I do love that. How do you like your tits? I like them over easy.
Yeah, barbecued, stir fried.
But I do think it's really interesting. The one thing that happens in the dialogue is this sort of like distancing that Nomi likes to imagine, like for herself, that she's not like Crystal, that she's not like a sex worker. Her own perception of self is like very present in this. And I think that Gina has very much more made peace with the fact that, you know, she's done what she needed to do to get where she's at. And that includes, you know, undercutting other girls and throwing other people under the bus. But yeah, I think that there's more honesty, I think, coming from Gina in this scene than we see from Berkeley's character.
Yeah, Nomi's like her ego and superego are deeply in conflict, you know, whereas with Crystal, Gina Gershon, she's fully comfortable with who she is. They then go back to the theater and they dance on stage. And the seduction continues, I guess. Crystal pulls Nomi's top down and touches her boobies. And then we hear this.
You see, darling, you are a whore. Bitch. Guess we're done.
That's a storm off number 4 for those of you keeping track at home, by the way.
I just think it's so fascinating that like Nomi is simultaneously supposed to be this wide-eyed ingenue who's coming to Vegas who doesn't really know anything from anything, and also a streetwise hustler who has a switchblade that could like kill you at the drop of a hat, and also knows jujitsu.
That's the whole point. It's a twist. Joe Eszterhas,
it would be a twist,
right? The typewriter, the fucking letter on the typewriter, in Jagged Edge. It's like, oh, we've been with this character for the whole movie, and they have to have something something different.
But the thing is that like at the beginning of the movie, we see that persona, so it's not a surprise, right?
And I think if a director other than if there is a director making the movie who wanted to do absolute justice to the script and make as good of a movie as possible with that script, they would have kind of had her look like an idiot with the knife. Right? Look like, someone she saw in a movie somewhere that you should pull knives on people and then they'll leave you alone. Whereas here, you can see from the very first scene, she knows what she's doing with that thing and she will absolutely kill that man while he is driving on the highway at 65 miles an hour. And that's the kind of tension that Verhoeven brings to this, which is his like intense like disrespect of the author of this script.
Yes.
He's like, here is this piece of shit movie that I'm going to make into a huge piece of shit movie. And that's what's going to make it amazing. But it also, I think, this is giving away the spoiler that we've already kind of talked about already, is like, she knows what she's doing. She has some sense of self that she's still trying to find, but she is very clear about setting her boundaries, not because, she hasn't been there before, she really is just some small town Pollyanna, but because she's saying, I have done certain things in my life that I am not going to do again.
Right.
I am moving on to a different thing.
One great example of that is the boat show, which we mentioned earlier, where Nomi and one of the other dancers are offered the opportunity to earn $1,000 by dancing at this show. But then it quickly becomes apparent that the whole point of her being there is so that she will have sex with a client. And all of this is essentially a ruse to pressure her into servicing this client, right?
Yeah.
And she refuses. And not only does she refuse, she goes back to Kyle MacLachlan to snitch out Phil, who is the guy who forced her into the situation. And Kyle MacLachlan picks up the phone and commands Phil to apologize.
Yeah, I'm on the stage. Get me Phil Newkirk, would you? All right.
Thank you.
I want you to stay.
Big old cell phone.
And the drop is up 33% on those 58 machines. It's going to make your bottom line about 250. Right?
Didn't even say hello.
I got an MBA for this. That's what this business has come to. Cost analyzing every slot machine.
What's an MBA?
An MBA is a degree.
Zach, you in here?
Yeah. Excuse me.
Hey. What's going on?
If I ever hear anything like this again, you're out of here.
Zach, nothing happened.
Yeah, something happened.
She's jumping to conclusions, Zach.
And if it happens again to anybody, you're gonna jump to your conclusion. Without your golden parachute.
Got him.
I owe her an apology.
Had to twist the knife?
Nomi, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
So she's able to set her terms and have those met. Now we find out, of course, that Kyle MacLachlan is being insincere.
Right.
He tells the guy to fuck off. He's on notice, and then calls him up right after she leaves, and he's like, "Hey, come back here." Oh, I know.
I love the way that the boat show thing is sort of framed as well, because the guy that they want her to hook up with, they could have cast like a really sleazy looking guy, but they cast just kind of a normal older man.
Well,
right?
a normal older Japanese man. There is this whole thing about Japanese businessmen throughout this movie.
It was the 90s.
Yeah. Right.
Like that was a very significant component of the way that the economy was working at the time, was that, especially in the early to mid 90s, Japan kind of had the upper hand on technology, but the US had the upper hand on services.
Yeah, but I just think in a movie that is at 11 at all times, that it was a fairly conservative casting choice for this. Like, it didn't feel like it was leading into like the grossness of it, but just that this was a very normal thing that happens in this world.
Yeah,
and
he's a very kind of boring
grounded.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's just some guy. And of course, you see the consequence of that is that the actual nefarious people at work are even the ones who seem to have your best interest at heart, like our dear sweet Dale Cooper, who's being a real Mr. C in this one.
Hey, get his ass.
I think it's also worth noting, going back to kind of the theme of Crystal always setting Nomi up to be humiliated, that she was the one that suggested her.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And Molly is the one that sort of warns her and has probably heard some things. She's like, I've heard girls don't like it. So again, the sort of like the corruption and the innocence.
Right.
In contrast.
And there's even an odd kind of beat right after that where then Nomi asks another one of the girls who had done like one of these shows before and was like, oh, did you like it? And she's like, yeah, I liked it. And then, nothing else, stays very quiet about what's going to come.
Yeah, and of course, also that is the white girl with the braids, which we have learned.
Right.
You cannot trust her.
No,
you cannot trust her.
She's trifling. Do not trust her.
But yeah, kind of like setting up other women to be put in a situation that they aren't expecting and likely will not appreciate is clearly within her wheelhouse.
Yeah. And it is an escalation of money too, right? It was $500 for the original lap dance, and now we're getting $1,000 for this new act. Like we are seeing how she is climbing slowly but steadily to the height of Vegas dancing.
It is also interesting too, though, because like $1,000 in 1995 money is probably about, I would say, $2,200 now, adjusted for inflation. That's good money. That's not insane money, though. Right? Like we're very clearly pointing also at their class positioning, that this remains a tenuous situation for all of these girls.
Yeah, right. Even Molly, who has a regular job as the costume manager for this show, lives in a trailer on the outskirts of Vegas, right?
So we move on to the next show. One of the dancers, this again is the aforementioned white girl with braids. She throws some plastic beads down on the stage to trip up the dancer who's carrying the dancer that she hates.
Yeah, they've been having beef in every single backstage scene up until this point. Yeah.
And defeats her, right? The guy falls down. He drops her. She is seriously injured.
And most importantly, Nomi sees it just before it happens.
Right.
And could say something about it, but doesn't.
And because she chooses not to, the girl with the braids is now in Nomi's debt, essentially. Nomi has done her a solid. And at this point, everything's coming up Nomi, right? Yeah. It turns out that her friends, hey, you remember Al and Henrietta from the old club? Well, they've come to visit her.
Hi.
Hi, Al.
You look like shit.
She looks better than a 10-inch dick, and you know it.
So, you like it here?
What do you think, she's gonna miss you?
Yeah, why not? We miss her.
She misses us like that lump on my twat I had taken off last week.
Oh, Jesus, Henry.
Thanks for coming, Lisa Lampanelli.
So the show. You were good.
Thank you, Al.
Real good. You take care, kid. Must be weird not having anybody come on you.
Perfect button to the scene.
Perfect.
No notes. Oh my God, so good. It's so sincere and so earnest. And you're like, oh, maybe they made a real connection. And then, must be weird not having come on you. And it's like, come on.
Here's the thing, though. He's right. It is weird not having come on you.
Yeah,
so I always keep this little vial on hand.
Just in case.
Papa got to get his sniffing in.
But there's something weirdly truthful about this too.
Yeah.
Just this dynamic and the way that they are interacting here. And
I feel like it genuinely comes off like they're proud of her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It feels sincere, and I feel like there's very few moments of like sincerity in this movie. So I just thought it was worth. And my God, what a great button! It's
fantastic.
Just,
also, that she unprompted just like also triggers the dress.
She wears
reveal.
that dress all the time. It's
It's
actually a different
honks.
dress that has the same gimmick.
The fact that the dress honks when her boobs pop out, fantastic. Whoever designed that costume piece, 10 out of 10, no notes.
I really want a different dress where it pops out and it goes, oh.
But at this point, Nomi has, I would say, she's let her guard down, right? Because it's all coming up for her. She's looking great. She's feeling great.
She's so excited she can't hide it.
She just can't hide it. And she goes over to Kyle MacLachlan's house.
Kyle MacLachlan, of course, seduces her with the luxury that he lives in. His convertible, his neon palm trees by the swimming pool.
Next to the real palm trees.
Also, too, are they drinking Cristal in that?
Well, he says he likes all different kinds of champagne.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it is. He introduces it as like I can have sex with more than one.
Also,
more than one
his
person.
delivery of that line is insane.
Yeah, this is the moment everyone has been waiting for. This is the big NC-17, the most erotic film of all time. You have been watching this movie now for an hour and a half, and finally someone is actually going to fuck.
Yes. This is the thing that you are going to jack off to. And all I can say is...
Good luck?
What can any of us say?
I think that it's like, well, okay, so what's weird about it, I mean, whole laundry list, right? But the weirdest thing to me is that because again, it is perfectly recreating the lap dance from earlier.
Right. She flops once again.
But this time she's in a pool, which is great because then she looks even more like a fish.
More like a fish, which just has to be, I guess, Kyle MacLachlan's character's thing.
Yeah.
He's just got a thing for fish.
There's also a great moment where he's like approaching her. You know, they're kind of having fun in the pool, and there's this like waterfall over the pool. And so he does like creature hands and reaches his hands through the waterfall. It's so fucking funny. It's so good.
But the main question I have for the group is how long does Kyle MacLachlan's penis have to be fucking her actively as she is flopping around?
So that's what's weird, right?
Yeah, her vagina is like
it's at
probably
belly button.
at his nipple height.
It's roughly at belly button level, I would say.
This is the room. This is the room sex scene in a pool.
Yes.
She's fighting for her life out there, man.
He's reeling her in, but she's giving back.
I mean, at this point, it's like, Verhoeven is doing some of this deliberately because it's goofy on purpose.
Yeah.
But I do have to wonder, has he had sex?
I'm even curious if there was sort of the choice was made to ruin this for the audience.
Yeah.
And it was like, we will make the sex scene happen, but we will actively work to ruin this experience for anybody who came here for this.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I really do. It starts off actually pretty sexy. In terms of the framing, you know, Kyle MacLachlan, you get to see his backside. It looks fantastic.
It's got that great tan line.
But then once the actual like action of coitus starts, it's a fucking mess.
Yeah. And again, I think this points to sort of like the larger take on this movie about eroticism in general. And it's something that it actually clicked for me while watching this. Like, oh, there has to be intention to make something erotic.
Yeah.
Right. You can't just show a breast and be like, it's sexy, right? By itself, it is simply just a human breast. I would say this movie does more to demystify the human breast than any movie I've ever seen in my life. But this movie, it's like, okay, so this whole time we've been like just looking at this non-erotically, right? Looking at all of these breasts. And now let's try to make it actively unsexy. Like that is a challenge. Like how to make sex unsexy. And I think it actually serves the movie better that this is not erotic at all.
I think they do.
And in fact, all the time I'm just like, ow, chafing, water, ow,
chlorine.
He's not coming. Skin is just actively being ripped from his dick.
And then in terms of like dumb guy cinema, it's like, oh yeah, the obvious parallel to when she was dancing before, but now she's fucking. It means that James was right. She dances like she fucks, and she fucks like she dances.
Wow.
So true.
Wow. Maybe she should have listened to him. I don't know.
I just took it all as like the performance of sex.
Yeah.
Right. And having that be very separate from actual eroticism. So the same way that she's like, I'm giving you the thing that you want, it's very much how the sex scene goes down, right?
Because she has decided, she's decided now that she is going to have transactional sex. This is not really for her.
Right.
Yeah.
This is her being like, well, I did these moves before. You liked them then. Now I'll just do them for you, but you have your dick out this time.
I do have a question for you, Renee, because like in terms of the way that I guess sex is filmed, obviously there are a lot of choices that are made here to make this unsexy. But in adult entertainment, there are a lot of tricks that are used to make things look sexy. What would you say are specifically the pieces of the shooting, the cinematography, and the choices made, other than the flopping, obviously, which fucking rules? What causes the viewer to become so distanced from the sexual act in the scene, do you think?
I mean, I think that every film that we watch, we are watching the filmmaker's perspective, right? We're showing us what they want us to see. And I think that, again, to your point, I think this was very intentional to make this as unerotic as possible. Whereas, and I do think that there's a difference between an erotic sex scene that you see in a movie versus an adult scene, in the way that they're shot.
Sure.
I think that we see in like more mainstream film a lot more like softness. Everything is very pretty versus like we are getting like a zoom in and you can see like every shaving bump that that occurred earlier in that day. So I think that I think it's the filmmaker's perspective. It's what they're showing the audience and the choices that they're making to try to evoke our feelings and reactions.
Right, because it does evoke that softness too, right?
You've got the music too. The music is kind of sentimental here, which is, I mean, music in porn is kind of out of fashion these days. But even when it was in fashion, it was always, especially in the 90s, there was very like synthy and kind of mysterious. Sex was always, a lot of the 90s and 80s era, even with stuff that wasn't porn like Red Shoe Diaries, it really played up the mystery of sex.
Yes, the dangerous synth noise, I think, is a great way to describe that. Absolutely.
Versus the 70s where it's like, we're going to slap the shit out of this bass. We're going to slap so much fucking bass right now. You're going to think that Seinfeld was already made.
I've seen that porno.
Well, look, the thing is, Nomi seemingly gets what she wants out of this, right? After the morning after, Kyle MacLachlan lets her know that there's an audition for Crystal's understudy. Nomi goes, she auditions for it. She gets the part. Everybody else, all of the other dancers, think that she got the part by fucking Kyle MacLachlan, and they're probably correct.
Yeah. He also makes a call because we don't know anything about her past. He makes a call to his guys to be like, find every bit of information that we can about this woman.
We also get another one-on-one here, another one of those fantastic one-on-one scenes between Nomi and Crystal involving nails and painting thereof. We also get storm off number 5 here. She goes and eats cheeseburger. And this is also then where her storyline reconnects with James's storyline, that she goes to the club, sees his really awful dance.
Everyone hates it.
Everyone hates it. They all boo. So many conversations in this movie end with somebody saying, "See ya."
Well, and it's really interesting, even after everything that James has done and stuff, she's being very nice to him. She's being very nice to Penny. It's very much like, I have gone to see my friend's dance show and it wasn't very good, but like, I'm so proud of them.
Which we've all had that experience.
Yeah. I've mostly been on the other side of that experience, but thanks for coming to my show, guys.
The lighting was great, Brian.
So then Nomi's understudy offer gets rescinded?
What's
going on?
What do you mean, what's going on?
Cool
it! You told me I got it and you sent me this!
I didn't have a choice. She threatened to walk. She got her lawyers into it.
So what?
So she's a big star. You're not worth it. Sorry, Nomi. I tried. Fuck.
I love that. Sorry, Nomi. I tried. There's just so many things that just sort of pop out at you while you're watching the movie. And you're like, why did they do that? Who cares? It's amazing.
Almost every single one of Kyle MacLachlan's deliveries falls into this category.
I mean, and it does feel like a totally different performance than Elizabeth Berkley's, than any of the other people in this movie. It's like, I think what Verhoeven is really good about doing is taking actors who have wildly different like training and backgrounds and putting them all in one world that feels cohesive despite everyone doing something that is completely different than the actor standing right next to them at any given time.
And that, by the way, what you just heard was storm off number 6, just to continue the tally. And now we get the motorcycle leather extravaganza, yet another big dance scene.
This is the end of history dance scene where humanity has achieved latex and the motorcycle.
We have become motorcycle. And this, of all the high camp moments in this movie, this for me personally is number 1 with a bullet. These costumes in the way that they're like perfectly carved out around the boobs.
Yeah.
The dance moves that they're doing here, which is somehow even worse than all of the choreography we've been seeing up until this point. It's glorious. It's pure Verhoeven.
Yeah, and it's great because we saw just that little bit in the rehearsal before, right? Crystal was teaching Nomi about how to do the dance. Now we see the entire production number of like this woman in a Mad Max hellscape getting brought to a factory and then breaking out of her chains and BDSMing everyone.
I mean, this is the 11 o'clock number, right? Like this is the moment. And like, Renee, if you were at this show, there's just like in this scene played out in front of you, what would you do?
Well, I'm going to say the first thing is I really regret that I didn't come to this interview and just like really, really double down on loving the dancing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why do you love this film for the dancing? It's mind blowing.
Of course.
The costumes are incredible. I find it visually so stimulating. And it's sort of the zenith of the industrial age. It makes so much sense to me now. I kind of love it. I love the costumes. Yeah. And I also love the sort of like, again, when we talk about the sort of power struggle, I feel like it's very easily like shown and illustrated on stage in this scene.
Well, it's so interesting. We've seen the costumes before, right? We've seen every element of this scene. We have just never seen it all together. And now here it all is. And Verhoeven is able to direct a fight scene into this dance scene. That makes it, that's what really puts it all over the edge, is that we're watching Elizabeth Berkley and Gina Gershon just go at each other and try to sabotage each other throughout the whole sequence.
By repurposing existing choreography into actual onstage combat.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the only thing really that this whole show is missing is a final closing number where Crystal has one boob out and has painted the nipple bright, like glowing red, so it could just be Hal from 2001: Space Odyssey.
Yeah. I'm afraid I can't do that for you, Nomi.
Just jiggling around.
So they've had that combat on stage, right? But Nomi needs to get her final revenge. Yep. She does exactly that. She shoves Crystal the fuck down the stairs.
So I had never seen this whole movie before now. I had seen a lot of it on VH1. It was one of the many movies that rock, and it's one of the most fascinating artifacts of, one of the most censored movies you'd ever have to make. They physically rotoscoped a bra on Elizabeth Berkley and everyone else in every scene
Renee,
where they're topless.
Have you seen this?
I have seen stills from this.
And it's like glowing. It's so good. But even knowing, there's the scene in Showgirls where she pushes her down the stairs. Everyone has heard of that scene. Every gay man talks about it, regardless of whether he's seen the movie. Actually seeing it happen is still such a shock. It's still because you expect the moment to happen on stage. We've already seen someone lose their career on stage, break their leg. And no, it's like the scene is done. We're rushing from one routine to the next one. Everyone's getting into their costumes. And then boom, she just goes fucking flying down those stairs.
By the way, I was watching the movie with my spouse, and who called that shot, I think 5 or 10 seconds before it happened.
Nomi 100% gets away with it, despite there being dozens of witnesses.
Yeah, no, none of them actually notice because they're too busy changing into a new thong. And then, of course, the lady with braids, she has the whole, you scratched my back, now I'm scratching yours. Right. Oh, I saw it happen. She fell on her own. No one was even near her.
And that, of course, is just her play because she knows that Nomi's going to get the part as the lead. And now she gets her opportunity to be the understudy. This is how power works in this world.
Yeah.
So will the show go on? Yes, of course it will.
Yes.
Nomi gets the part. A bunch of men decide on it. There's actually, I think it's a really, for me, very effective scene where it's just the men standing in a big conference room together. And because in this movie, there has been a woman on screen for pretty much the entirety of it. Then to have this moment where it's just men is startling. Yeah. I found this scene remarkably effective considering the where it falls. And I'm curious if that was the case for anybody else.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of, A Star is Born again, or even like that scene in Network where they're all sitting around and they're like, oh yeah, we should just kill Howard Beale.
I think there's something too about like, because we, as you said, Josh, we've had a woman pretty much in every single shot of this thing that like, it just goes to reinforce the point that you have to reach a certain level of power, which is pretty high up, to even get into the spaces of the room with all the men in it, right? Like this is like achievement unlocked. You have become girl boss of Vegas dancing.
Yeah, there's this old guy there who's like Florence Ziegfeld of the Stardust, and he's like, we've never gone dark a day in my life. It's been 730 years since I opened this place. We've got to go on. We're going to make a new star out of somebody.
Give me those gams. I demand the gams.
And it's very high-minded. It's very like the artistry. No, we don't go dark. People need their entertainment, you know?
Yeah.
We need to provide this for people. And it's this slop.
Specifically when you were talking about how we're so used to watching, women on screen and women interact, and ultimately it kind of coming down to, all right, now here are the 4 guys that actually run the show. And they're going to make a decision, and we are sort of at their mercy to find out what happens to like all of the characters that we care about and have like, established like relationships with. Ultimately, it's these 4 guys making a decision in the room, and it has nothing to do with like, what's outside of their circle.
Most of whom we've seen almost none of up until this point. Or if we have seen them, it's been in maybe a scene and never all together.
That's going to become a theme of the last 20 minutes of this movie.
Yes, Acts 2 and 3.
Well, we have entered Act 2, right?
Right,
When Chris gets pushed down the stairs, we are now in Act 2.
Yep.
I hope you enjoy it. It's only here for another 8 minutes or so.
So Nomi goes on, and she's a hit. And she has achieved the dream, but at what cost?
Yeah.
Molly confronts her directly about what happened.
You pushed her, didn't you?
No. How can you talk that shit to me? Julie saw it.
She couldn't have seen it. I saw Julie, and her back was to you.
Wow.
Okay. Have fun at your party.
Molly, come here, Molly. You gotta come. Andrew's gonna be there.
I don't care.
You may be wondering, who's Andrew? Andrew is Andrew Carver, a character in this story who's like one of Vegas's biggest musicians, right? He's always singing and doing his show, but he's only appeared so far just like on posters.
Right. They have seeded him pretty well throughout the movie is what I'll say. Like there are a lot of references to him.
We just haven't mentioned
posters
him.
at various points.
There's a big old opening party going on with some incredibly dangerous looking pyrotechnics.
Oh boy, too close.
Much too close. And this again is where Braid Girl, whose name I can't remember.
Yeah.
What's her name again, Renee?
I think Julie.
Julie. All right. Well, we'll say Julie. But yeah, she trades on that favor to ask for the chance to be Nomi's understudy. And Nomi, of course, then connects Molly with that Andrew Carver guy.
Yeah, you might be wondering, Molly was just mad and she kind of stormed off from Nomi and they're not friends. I guess she got over it and she decided to come to the party anyway.
And was like, no, I want to come. And this is where there is a scene that, I guess, content warning.
Yeah.
Up until this point, this movie has been very, very fun.
Yeah.
And then this scene happens where Andrew Carver and 2 other guys shove Molly into a room at this party and violently gang rape her.
Yeah.
I want to read something here. This is an interview with Gina Rivera, who played Molly. And I just wanted to put this out here before we talk about this scene because I think it's important to acknowledge. When you do a scene like that, your body doesn't know it's not real, she says now, characterizing the filming of that sequence as a deeply unpleasant and painful 9-hour ordeal. I don't know if I would have taken the movie if I had understood that. There was no acknowledgement of what it was going to be, and I didn't know what to ask for because I'd never been in a situation like that in real life, nor professionally. It was my first rape scene. There's no one to call and say, how'd you do that rape scene? And you got 2 men holding you down. My wrists were bruised and my body was just covered in bruises after it because of what was asked for the camera. It's like a stunt. People get hurt in stunts, but you know what you're signing up for with stunts, and I didn't know. Since then, Rivera has made a point of turning down roles that would require her to play a victim of sexual abuse. I don't like being known for that or knowing that my image is on the internet in perpetuity in a rape scene. That was the last time I ever played a woman who has gotten hit or was vandalized. It cost me a few jobs too.
Thank you for sharing that, by the way. I think that's really important to acknowledge like her experience in shooting that. And I also think it speaks to why it's important to have intimacy coordinators, which it's something that has happened, I feel like, far more recently than this movie was made, of that kind of being an industry standard.
Yeah.
But having somebody that you can talk to that can step in to make things safe and to make things, I mean, that sounds like a really horrific filming experience.
And Verhoeven wants to call this difference between how people see sex and how people see violence. You do violence in a movie, typically, especially a big Hollywood movie, you have stunt people. You have choreography, right? You have these pyrotechnics, you have people on set. You have to be on this mark and do this for safety. And we had not been doing that with intimacy at all. It was like, okay, we'll get the actors together. I'm sure we'll figure something out, right? And that goes to the point of even depicting sexual violence. It wasn't being treated the same way as a scene where two people are going to be like punching and kicking each other, like you're going to see it towards the end of this movie. It's just like, okay, actors, do what you need to do here.
And that is really why, as much fun as I have with most of this movie, this just leaves such a bad fucking taste in my mouth because of, like, it's not just the scene itself, it's also knowing about the conditions behind it.
Well, I think that one thing that it does effectively is make the audience experience how jarring rape is.
Yeah, it's not cartoonish.
I think it's very difficult to watch this scene and just be like, I didn't really feel anything. It's disturbing. And I think that it also disrupts the film in a way that like is similar to the way it disrupts lives.
Yeah.
It's just not the same afterwards. It's different.
Yeah. It's a totally different movie. I mean, even in the scenes outside of the way that this is shot, and more specifically the way that it's edited, where it cuts between what is happening in this room off to the side and then just the whole party where everything is very calm. Everyone's just kind of, out and about and giggling and everything.
Yeah.
But also, like, the way that dialogue lands after this scene is a lot heavier. The editing slows down.
Yeah.
The beats are you're not necessarily turning up to 11 on every line anymore.
I mean, the thing that really rocks me about it is after everything's all done and she like staggers down the stairs and she falls on the floor and there's just blood going down her legs. Like, it's in a movie that has up until this point been a complete cartoon. It's literally like a record scratch happens and it's like, no, but here's the actual reality of everything. I think that having Molly be the victim here, I understand that it is the movie's attempt to like get the most pathos because she is the heart, like one of the hearts of the movie, right? She is like,
she's basically a saint, she's never done anything wrong.
She's basically a saint. It does feel, it's not even unfair is the word, but it just feels like that character deserved more than just being the fallout, like the catalyst for Nomi to then seek revenge.
So I'm just going to real quick read another quote from that interview with Gina Rivera, because I think she actually put it very well. Beyond her experience performing that scene as an actress, Rivera says that she's still disturbed by what it meant for Molly, who was last glimpsed barely conscious in a hospital bed after Nomi has taken revenge against Carver for his crime.
Yeah.
You're just brutalizing this character. You tear the character apart and you don't do anything with it. She just sits there broken, she notes. That I still have a problem with. We're watching a black girl be completely gutted for no reason except to have this character, Nomi, vindicated because she has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. I've never been happy about it because the movie didn't need it. When you give that kind of work as an actor, I think you want to know it has some value. If I was the editor, that would have been clipped. We'd have to find some other event to show that Nomi has a heart. Something that's not so dark.
I'm going to start by saying I don't think that Nomi is redeemed. I think she comes off as some sort of white savior that does nothing to make Molly's life any better.
Yeah.
I think that she does it for her own conscience and the guilt that she feels for putting Molly in this situation where this occurred. I do think that there is something that is also being said when Molly is not a character that has ever worked at a strip club. She's not a topless dancer. This is a person who does not deserve this, and it happens to her anyway. Obviously we have the themes of like corruption and innocence, but also like I think this sort of like respectability politics like kind of comes into the room too, where I feel like if it were somebody who, if it were Penny or, she's a stripper, like she's putting herself out there, like, the sort of tropes that you hear of like, well, if you didn't want that to happen, maybe you shouldn't, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And I think that it is interesting that, the person who experiences like terrible violence has no reason to deserve it. And number two, has people helping in ways that aren't helpful at all.
Yeah.
Because if anything, this would probably just piss this guy off and he might go after
100%.
her again, right? She may have
Absolutely.
actively made it worse.
I don't see Nomi as being vindicated at all in that action. I think that's a very self-serving choice that she makes. And I think that also kind of tracks with the trajectory of her character.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to say too, because we've been talking about this a lot, sort of the tension between the direction and the writing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Verhoeven is aware of all of this. I do. I think that in terms of the way that things are framed and directed, he knows that this violence is ultimately not going to, the counter violence, I should say, when Nomi gets her revenge on her friend's behalf, that this is not actually going to fix any of the problems. But I think that as written, the screenplay does believe that. And that to me creates a very, very strange tension.
To just get over a couple of the points here. So basically what happens is, once she's in the hospital, Nomi comes and visits her. Kyle MacLachlan is like, we're not going to call the police. You're not going to call the police. By the way, I know everything about you. Here are all these arrests that I know about for solicitation that you've done. Right. You are not Pollyanna.
Your real name is Polly.
Yeah.
And then we realize why she's been perking up every time she hears Pollyanna is because she thinks she's hearing her real name.
Yeah. But we find out that the reason she has the boundaries that she does is because she actually has had to do these things in her life and doesn't want to do them, not because they are beyond the bounds of her knowledge. And because Carver is so powerful, because she has this past, everything could blow up in her face if she decided to do something through, the proper means, as it were. So instead, she goes and decides to sort of seduce Carver. And then when he's in a vulnerable moment, she gets that knife from the opening of the movie, puts it up against his neck, threatens him, and doesn't attack him with the knife. Instead, she just kicks him a bunch.
Yeah, she curb stomps him on the floor of his apartment.
And I think it's Verhoeven trying to do, in the same way that he made the world's unsexiest sex scene. He took his desexing stick and waved it around most unsexily. He tries to do that with violence as well.
Yes.
But as you
because
see...
we know that Paul Verhoeven, anybody who's seen RoboCop knows that Paul Verhoeven knows how to do gritty, not
realistic,
over-the-top violence.
Cartoonish, violence that is supposed to, that he's trying to make, that is not celebrating that violence, and then somehow making movies that gross hundreds of thousands of dollars because people think the violence in it is so cool, right? You still have people watching Starship Troopers today being like, yeah, but they're bugs. They're obviously bad guys.
Right.
And so he's more successful at, I think, doing to sex what he wanted to do than doing the same thing to violence, which he's always been trying to do.
At the end of all of this, right, after she's gotten her revenge and curb stomped Andrew in his own apartment, she goes back to the hospital one more time and meets up with Crystal.
Yeah.
And they have their final conversation.
The best advice I ever gave you. If you're the only one left standing up there.
They'll hire you.
Thank you, and good night, ladies and gentlemen. Crystal has left the building.
I'm sorry, Crystal.
Yeah, I know just how sorry you are. How do you think I got my first lead? There's always someone younger and hungrier coming down the stairs after you.
Why didn't you tell anyone?
Oh, hell, darling. I needed a rest. Besides, my lawyers got me a real nice settlement.
Oh, okay.
I gotta go.
Aren't you gonna come here and give me a big kiss?
And then she kisses
and
her.
then they have the kiss of understanding.
This is back into ridiculous mode, right? Like she went and visited her friend who was barely conscious. And then it's like, no, actually the last moment has to be this fucking scene where she goes into the hospital. Gina Gershon is like, yeah, it's fine. I assumed it would happen sooner or later.
I was tired.
I just love how she's just fully like, well, I do declare it has been such a difficult time for me. But like that, then Nomi hitchhikes off. It's the guy from the beginning of the movie. She's like, where's my fucking money? Or where's my fucking suitcase, rather? Threats him with the switchblade one more time, and we're off to the next place, which I guess will be Los Angeles in Showgirls 2, which did get made. I never watched it.
I don't even think Eszterhas had anything to do with that one.
Yeah, well, Eszterhas sitting there types cut to black at 6:59 a.m. as the sun peaks over the mountains, and he leans back and says, "I've done it," and then head plants into the table, blood gushing out of his nose in one final orgasmic motion. I don't know. This movie is so much fun, and it is a testament to Paul Verhoeven and every actor in it that it is as fun as it is, because if you put this script in any other hands, this would be the worst, most agonizing thing I would ever have to watch.
Yeah, it would be Showgirls 2, Pennies from Heaven.
I do want to point to one thing that I don't think we've mentioned yet, is that this movie swept the Razzies for anyone that's from, and then came back 5 years later and then won worst film of the decade. Like this film cleaned up in that regard, and I absolutely love it. It is my comfort film. I watch it when I'm doing my makeup. I watch it when I'm gonna go to sleep. I usually make it about an eighth of the way through the first act.
That's fine. That's the best part.
Yeah, Verhoeven actually went to the Razzies to accept the awards, and he said, I'm actually having a great time tonight. It's way better than back in September when I was reading all the reviews.
I think that one of the big points that the movie is trying to make is that you will only ever find disappointment if you try to work within these systems of abuse, that you need to find something better, and you need to do it by bonding together with other people. And as we were talking about before we recorded, as well as during the break, Renee, that is something that you are currently doing in your own professional practice in terms of advocating for unionization efforts and community action and stuff like that. So if we wanted to present a better view of what sex work can be, what might that look like? And what are you and other people doing to try to bring that about?
So I started working in the advocacy space around 2019, specifically working with sex workers to help advocate for ourselves and our community. Obviously, we're trying to build solidarity and create safer spaces for sex workers. Sex work, I believe, is not inherently dangerous, but there are other factors that do make it dangerous. It's very difficult for people who are working in fields that are criminalized to report when they see something, to report someone that they suspect is potentially being trafficked, or to report violence that they've experienced. So these are the sort of things that we are trying to work to change. I was asked to advise on a bill, a decrim bill here in Wisconsin. We're hoping to build in a lot of things that hopefully will make a difference for people. Specifically in Wisconsin, they still arrest children for the charge of prostitution. That is one thing that we are hoping to change. And then also specifically supporting Crystal Kaiser, who is a young woman who was in the news a few years ago. And I do think that when you stop being in the news, people forget pretty quickly, which is unfortunate. And it's going to be time for her appeal soon. So getting the word out there and getting support. Specifically, her appellate team seems to believe that getting a new petition started to show the judge that she still has support in the community could be helpful. So that is one aspect that we're working on, and also just trying to help raise support and funds for her legal team. So if you're interested in hearing more about some of the stuff that we're working on, the site is casw304.org, and you can kind of find out more about us. We are pretty active on social media, and we can use all the support that we can get right now. So we appreciate it.
We, of course, are often talking about on this show ways that you, specifically you, the listener, can make a difference in your local communities or more broadly, and whether it's getting involved with one of these specific causes or looking into similar options in your community, making sure that everybody has the dignity to work in a way where they're not constantly having the law up their ass, we think is a good thing. That includes sex work. And we again, like I said, we will provide resources for you to get involved if that's something that you would like to do.
I so appreciate that. And yes, I think that making this world safer for sex workers it impacts people that are like obviously involved in trafficking as well and experiencing disability. There's so many different facets that will be touched by this. So I appreciate you guys being so helpful and having me on the show and letting me talk about Showgirls for the last 3 hours because it's one of my favorite topics.
When that topic, like when Josh brought it back to us, we're like, of course we're going to talk about Showgirls.
Yeah, this has been truly a delight, Renee. If folks want to follow you around on the web, get a hold of what you are up to, what should they do?
XORenee.com has all of my social links. So that's XORENEE.com. And if you want to hear more about the organization that I'm working with, that's CASW304.org.
And if you're listening to our show for the first time, thank you so much. We hope you've enjoyed it. And we've got a lot more just like it in our back catalog, including at patreon.com/worst of all. For $5 a month, you can get access to our entire back catalog, including the premium episodes. We've got stuff back in there, including some stuff that we referenced in today's episode. So go back, take a look.
The RoboCop episode?
The RoboCop episode.
Oh, yeah.
That was like over 100
Yeah,
I'm not even
our episode when Dobson met Bundy, when we talk about that infamous interview.
That's right, the Ted Bundy episode. Our big focus of our show is just the intersection between reactionary politics and culture and the media. So if you are interested in finding more examples of narratives that are fucked and would like good ways to chart a course out of them, that's what we're here to try to do. So check our stuff out as well. Obviously, check out everything that Renee does. And thank you again so much, Renee, for coming on and being such a brilliant guest.
So the end of Showgirls, riding off into the sunset as the camera zooms in on a highway sign that just says Los Angeles, right? The implication, of course, being that Nomi may escape this version of the patriarchy, but she is diving headfirst into an entirely different Shark Tank. It's a pretty cynical end to this movie. And often with cynical things, it can be like, well, that's just the way the system is. You know, you can spiral into that. But also, I find that cynical movies often have a message of what to fight against. And through stuff like legislation, like decriminalization, like forming coalitions, we can strive towards a world that is not this patriarchal-owned, oppressive system and move to one that has safer sex for everyone, for any kind of sex you want, be it gay, straight, or flopping around like a fish while being railed in a pool.
So true.
I am the worst of all possible AJs.
I'm the worst of all possible Bryans.
And I'm the worst of all possible Joshes. See you next week.
You'll never get me this time, fucking Dynamo Roosevelt. The New Deal will never succeed. I will take my little orphan Annie back into the helicopter.
This is my daddy Warbucks voice.